Hey there, Shanna Cramer here with Creatively Uncorked. Today's painting is Enchanted Dragonfly. If you've been ordering from Creatively Uncorked online and getting any of our art kits ordered, this Enchanted Dragonfly is one that's available in our art kits. When you order an art kit online, you'll get a reference photo, written instructions. You're also going to get all of the colors that you need, and then you have the option of getting brushes, either new brushes or used brushes, entirely up to you. So I'm going to be working from the kit just to show you what you get with your kit. And future kits, when they go out, the instructions will have a link to this video. So kind of an added bonus. All right, so today I want to get started on our background. And our background is going to consist of a few different colors. I'm going to work mostly right out of these little color pots instead of mixing them on my plate, at least for now. And this is kind of what your kit will look like. I'll set my green aside. I don't need that yet. Take out some blue. And there we are. Okay, so right now I have my background sketched, and this is what your canvas will look like when you get it. Although your canvas will be a new canvas, my canvas is an old reused one because I figured that's just fine for this video. And just a pro tip, if you want to make sure that you see your lines after you have your background layer of paint on there, I do recommend tracing over these with a Sharpie. It's always a good idea. A few other supplies you're going to need before you get started. You'll need a glass of water, of course. I do recommend having a plate, a mixing plate that you can put your paints on. And in this case, I have a towel. You can use a paper towel if you would rather. I've decided that I'm going to just use these towels from now on because it seems to be a whole lot easier for me. So to start out with, I'm going to take my big bristle brush, dunk that in the water, and I'll take a little white, little yellow. I do want to dump a little bit of my white down onto the plate though, just because I don't want to mess up too much of my white. I am going to need it later. And another pro tip here, if you have pencil lines and you opted not to do the Sharpie method, you'll want to keep that pretty thin. So just add a little touch of water to your paint. To add water to your paint, you just dunk your brush in the water, go back to the paint on your plate, mix it in right there, then go from your plate to the canvas. Now I'm going to try and keep this layer kind of thin. See that, how you can kind of still see the pencil through it? And I'm just doing long, broad brush strokes all the way across the canvas. And I am going off the edge. One pro tip so you don't fling paint is if you start on the edge and pull in, and that's going to be the safest. If you brush right off of the edge, you're going to fling paint when you hit the edge. So try to avoid doing that, especially if you have like an iPad nearby or something that you don't want paint splatters on. And then when you're ready to move on to the next color, I'll move on to a little bit of turquoise next. Just taking that and blending it right next to my yellow. And I'll come back over to my canvas and I'm just going right below the yellow. Just adding a nice good band of that turquoise. And then now, once I've got that on there, now I'm just going to start blending up. Just moving up slowly with the paintbrush, continuing with those back and forth strokes. And it should gently fade into the yellow. When you see that gentle fade, stop painting. To keep going at this point is not going to be beneficial. Okay, onward. Now I'll make my next turquoise band. Mixing it in with the little yellow on the plate, that's going to be just fine. So now I'm going up above. Just making that big turquoise band. Thinning it out a little. See it's starting to cover my pencil lines. And again, back down. Blending down to the center of my canvas. All right, that's looking pretty good. It's getting a little bit thick, so I'm going to want to add more water next time. So I'll just dunk my brush in water, pick up a little blue, mixing water into my blue right over here on my plate so it's nice and watery, and then taking it back over to the canvas, starting with the bottom, and then just blend and work your way up into the turquoise. And now that's a nice, smooth blend. picking up a little more of that watery blue, going back to the top of the canvas. Broad strokes all the way across the canvas, and then slowly work your way down into the turquoise. Once you have this nice blend, stop. I'm going to clean off my brush, put that in the water, and this is where we'll take a break and let it dry. So you can go ahead and pause, and we'll come back in just a little bit. Welcome back for round 2. Here we are. We have our background painted and dry, and we are working on our Enchanted Dragonfly. And going by the instructions, that's what we're going to end up with. And I am just going to keep my little reference photo off to the side, but I'll post a reference for you up in the corner, just so you can see what we're working on as we're going along here. So my next thing I want to make is going to be my moon and my little fireflies in the background. So I just rinsed off my brush in the water, and now I'm drying it on my towel. I want to take just a little speck. So if you've dumped out any paint here on your plate, we're going to take a little speck of white, little speck of yellow. Okay, and now here's my moon. It is penciled on the canvas for me. So I'm just going to put, I'll see if I can tilt it so you can see. Put my brush straight down onto the middle of the moon, and then just start circling. Circle bigger and bigger and bigger, and then less and less pressure. And that's going to give you a big circly moon with a mist around it. So maybe like a foggy moon. And I'll do exactly the same thing with a couple of little fireflies. Tiny little speck of paint. And then I'll just choose a few little spots for my fireflies. Just a little tiny circle scribble. Barely any paint at all. Remember to put the brush straight down and lift it straight off. This is a dry brush technique. So you want to keep your brush as dry as possible. And an old fuzzy brush generally works a little bit better for this. I'm using an old bristle brush. This thing has been used and abused for years, but it makes the bristles all ratty and fuzzy, which is perfect for this technique. If you've seen our videos for any length of time, you know that we have a lot of videos that use, or a lot of paintings that require old brushes. It's because we're all full up on old brushes. We have a lot of old brushes in the studio. They have to get pretty bad before we throw them away because they have so many uses for so long. All right, I'm going to call that good. So that's my background. I'll just throw that brush in the water there. We'll let it get a little bit older. Move on to the next part of the painting, which is going to be my dragonfly's wings. I'll take the angle shader and I'll just dunk that in the water. Okay, if you have any water on the handle of your brush, you just want to make sure you wipe that off. You don't want that dripping onto your canvas. I'm going to take a little bit of white. So what I'm doing is outlining my dragonfly wings with white. And I'll try to do that in a way that I don't stick my hand in paint, in wet paint. So this angle shader, pretty nice. You can get a nice sharp line. And it's also nice and flat so you can fill in easily with it. There we are. I'm going to keep going on all of my wings. Make sure all of my wings are kind of outlined in white. And if you need to move your canvas around in any way, tilt it, turn it, so that it's easier for you to be able to get to the right part of the wing to be able to fill that in. You just do what you need to do. Let's see, because I've got a nice sharp point on this that I can use to do fine lines. There. Okay. And then down here on this wing, I'll just do the same thing where I kind of get in there with a little corner of my brush. There we are. So now I've got my wings nice and outlined with white. And then I'll take a little bit of white and just put that out on my plate so I can mix a little bit of yellow. So I've got white and yellow as my wing color on the outside end. And I'll just go right out to the edge of the wing and just kind of blending that yellow color in. So out from the end of the wing, just in the little bit in, just the last little bit of that wing. Just blend it in. Do that on all 4 wings. Okay, and then we have the green and the blue, which is going to be blended a little on the inside. So I'll just take some of the green or turquoise and just a little touch of blue, and I'm putting that on my plate as well. So now I have my green and my blue, and that's going to be on the insides of the wings. And this goes all the way into the body. So I'll go ahead and pick up both of those colors. I'm just picking up both in about equal amounts and just blending that toward the body. You can see why this is my favorite brush. You can make thin lines, thick lines. Get really nice blends with it. All right. Now that I've got my colors to be blended there, now I'll take a little bit more white, just a touch, and I'll go right in between that green and that blue and the yellow. Okay, wiping the brush back off again. Wiping the brush back off again. Wiping the brush back off again. Notice how every time I put a swipe on the wing, I'm taking that paint back off of the brush. Okay. Next, I'll pick up a little bit more white again. Same thing. I'm just going to get that blend between the yellow and the green and the blue. Wipe the paint off. And I'm starting always with the lighter side. There. Gonna take this little bit of a green right down here on the bottom of that wing. Give that wing some real definition. Back up to that top wing, just a little right under the bottom edge. Just make that wing pop a little bit. Going and rinsing my brush now because I've got a lot of paint built up in it, the greens and the blues. Just want to add a little white. Little white highlight. Just a little white highlight. Top of that wing and blend it. All right, that is nice and blended in. I'm going to leave those wings alone and I'll move on to the other side. A little bit of white paint again. And that certainly seems a lot easier if you let the background colors on that wing dry a little bit first, and then come back and blend the white over the top. So we're going to do that. Okay, same thing. I'll take a little bit of that green again, or that turquoise, and right along the bottom of that wing. One more time. There. So now I've got my nice turquoise, I've got my blends. I'm going to just go ahead and leave the wings just like that. Now on the dragonfly body, now I have this nice corner on my brush. So I'm just going to go ahead and dunk my brush in that blue, pick up a little blue on both sides, flatten that out, and I'll go right on down the tail and stop. Okay, now I'll go ahead and fill in my dragonfly body, which is just a little bit of a, I guess I'd call it almost a cylinder shape. And on this head, to get a little bit more of a round shape with this corner of a brush, put the corner, the biggest corner down and press, and then pull toward the head. Okay, same thing on the other side. Press and pull. So that's just going to kind of spread those bristles out a lot. And then you can just use a corner of that brush to just touch up a few details. There we are. Now as we do the segments down the body, similar technique, I'll take that big corner of the brush and then I'll go ahead and press it down, press it down, press it down. I'm just going to keep moving right on down the dragonfly. Now these getting a little bit smaller, so press a little more gently. The more pressure you put on the brush, the bigger your paint is going to be. So just a little, all the way to the end. So now we've got the segments all the way down the body. I think I'll make these just a little bit bigger here in the middle. Just make sure they get smaller and smaller and smaller as you work your way down. So I'm going to leave my dragonfly alone and let that paint dry. That's my background layer of paint. And now I've got some green leaves I'll be adding. And I'll just take some of that green and just go ahead and put it down on my plate because I know I'll be mixing it with a little bit of turquoise and a little bit of blue. So I'm just going to put my all three colors there right together. Just a little dot of each. All right, so I'm going to take my green and I'll just add in a few of my branches. So got a branch. I've got a branch. And if you take the green on one side, maybe blue on another side, then the blue side is the shadow side. So if I'm doing these leaves, for example, I've got the blue on the bottom, the green on the top, and then watch what happens. See, just like that. Now there's a shadow on that leaf, on the left side of that leaf. On this one here, I'll wipe off the brush because I want the shadow to be on the bottom, which is, well, I guess the same side. And then the green on top, the blue on the bottom. And when I go and make my line, now I've got a highlight on top, a shadow on the bottom. Did that in one brush stroke. Okay, I'm going to do that a couple more times to add the remaining leaves. So I've got another one right up here. Oh, my blue didn't really show up there. And another one right up here. And there I got my blue to show. Okay. So now that I have my stems in, now I have my leaves. And I'll just go ahead and load up on some green. Now here's the trick. I'm going to pull down with my brush and kind of twist it out and down. And that covered half of my leaf. I'll just take a little bit of turquoise now. Same thing, starting at the tip of the leaf. Pull it down and out and down. So the pointy end of the brush is doing all the work. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that on my next leaf. I'll show you that trick again. Pick up a little bit of turquoise here. I'm going to actually add a touch of white to brighten that up. Okay, pointy end to the tip of the leaf. Pull back toward the stem, and as you pull back, twist out and pull back around. Okay, I'll take a little more blue this time for my shadowier side. Start exactly the same spot, pull down, twist out, and back. Now that leaf got a mighty defined shadow area. So I'm picking up some more green. I'll just keep right on going. A few more leaves. Pay a little bit of attention to what colors you're working with. All right, so now I'm working on the bottom side, which is going to be my shadow side, and twist. And up to the top. And twist. Okay, if you have any trouble at all with this technique, just paint your leaves like you want to paint leaves. All right, gonna go with a little bit more white on that side. There, just kind of rotated that one right around. And I'll come back on this one with, I'll come back on these with my stems and put my stems back over the top again. And I can also add some more highlights. Okay. Adding a little bit more color, starting to run out. There we go. Twist all the way around and meet the stem. Starting back up at the top again. And there we are. And I just did that third little brush stroke because my sides were just a little too far apart. They didn't quite meet in the middle. Okay, taking a little more green this time. There we are. And then some blue for the shadow side. There, a couple of brush strokes this time to get that to fill in the whole leaf. So leaves are looking pretty good. I want to add a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white. Okay, so this color is going to go over the top of some of my stems here. And now this is just a really thin, light little color, just to connect my stems to my leaves. Barely touching the canvas at all. Just coming right up along that stem and right up to the leaf. And right up into that leaf. So there, they're all just connected now. Go ahead and leave that brush in the water for a couple of minutes. And while I'm waiting for my dragonfly to dry, so I'm just going to go rinsing out that angle shader. Dry the handle if you have water on the handle. Okay. And this we're going to take just a teeny tiny, little tiny small amount of blue. All right. So now we have some little front legs to put in there. So I'll just do a little, barely touch the canvas, barely. And just do a little skinny little line. Little skinny little line, and then we can kind of connect those skinny little lines to the body. Barely any paint, barely touching the canvas. That's how that works. All right, now we have some eyes on that little sucker, so I'll just go ahead and rinse my brush one more time. And I'm going to take some white, a little touch of yellow, a little more white, because I want this color to be mostly white. At any rate, it just needs to be lighter than the dragonfly. So I'm going to come in here on my eyes, and this should be just a small little amount of paint on your brush. And I'm just going to make some little dragonfly eyes with the corner of my brush. Okay, once I've got that on there, then I'm just going to do this little highlight area right down the back of the body. And then I'm going to do that same highlight on just a couple of the larger segments. Don't go too far. Just going to make that eye a little bit bigger. The eyes are going to take up pretty much the whole sides of the head. So you'll want that eye to go all the way to the edge. There. Uh-oh. See what happens? Gotta be careful. Don't stick your hand in wet paint. Okay, I'll show you how to fix that if it happens to you. Better if you just don't stick your hands in wet paint, because that can always be a little bit tough to fix, especially with its white and yellow. So now I'm just taking a little tiny bit of white, tiny smidge of yellow, barely any yellow, mostly white. Just kind of blending, maybe a little more yellow, because you're going to need white to cover up that green, because yellow won't cover it. There. Yep, so anytime that you get an accidental color under a yellow, you have to paint it white first, then paint it yellow again, because yellow will never cover whatever it is that you're trying to cover. And then we have a few little like glittery highlights on those wings. So I'll just take my corner of my brush again, and I've got that kind of yellow and white that I was using earlier on the eyes, just a little small amount. And then we'll just kind of make some little glow spots, some little enchanted glow spots on the wings with my little bit of white paint in the little corner of that brush. Almost like it's got freckles. Enchanted freckles. What do you think of that? I kind of like it. Enchanted freckles. And then I also want to come back and just I sort of want to surround the edges, like highlight the edges here of these wings. And we'll do that exactly like we did the first time through, just a little tiny bit of paint. And kind of leading with the pointy edge there. Just kind of bring in some bright white. And if you really want to punch that white up, just use a lot of it. If you want a little hint of white, you just use a little tiny small amount and kind of scrub it into the canvas a little. I want to make these kind of bright, so I'm just using kind of a lot of paint and just pressing it in there. There. Well, I think my dragonfly is pretty enchanted. I'm just, see now, I have this just a little tiny little touch of white on the brush. Barely any white on the brush, and just kind of dragging it across gently so you can see the colors beneath it, and it just kind of blends right in. If you wanted to make a bright white spot in the center of your sun, you can do that. I think I might. Here's a trick for circles. You just press your brush down and spin it. There. So now there's my bright white sun, and it's still got that nice glow around it. But if I just want to make take some little blue out of the wings. Now that I've added some bright whites back in there. There we are. Okay, I'm going to call this done. Let me know what you think. Happy to hear it. Please post your questions and comments. And thank you for painting with me today. I'm Shanna Cramer. This is Creatively Uncorked. And we'll see you next time.